Kia ora everyone. The following is a story written and narrated by Debbie Stewart, founder and director of Wingspan. It's from her book entitled The Hunters, The Precarious Lives of New Zealand's Birds of Prey, published by Random House Penguin in 2018. Enjoy.
It was last century, the mid-1980s, early February, the east coast of New Zealand, at Ohope. Long, warm days of summer, an endless white beach, glittering and sparkling water. You even can see the shadows of the shoals of the fish in the breakers. Whakaari, White Island, is off in the distance, but you can still see the clouds of miniature eruptions, puffs of sulphur fumes. Closer is Motuhora, Whale Island. It has an eroded and rugged eastern face, a whale hump with overgrazed tussock and dry from the summer, and a few old trees on the top. The view and the beach simply stunning. But despite the almost postcard appeal of the actual beach, the waves, they break very close to the shore, so it's not such a gentle beach after all. There are rugged souvenirs of past storms and clusters of driftwood, windswept tussocks and tumbleweeds. There are sunbathers and fishermen spaced almost routinely 150 metres apart, striped in copper, skinks scuttling, leaving their tail prints in the sand. Then leading from the sand dunes, a railway line, then a lazy highway, and lined with the majestic Pahutakawa. In fact, some of them are still in flower, making a statement as the last bright red reminder of another New Zealand Christmas. There are rocky, steep cliff faces held together by the gnarly roots of Australian gums and dead rata. There's 6 dead possums flattened in the middle of the road, puffs of wind mixed by rotting meat and salty air. So this is where I escaped to. I had checked in to the main road campsite. Not too busy, a typical carefree Kiwiana summer holiday spot. The sort of camp where friendly families make genuine smile contact with strangers. It's a crossroads for people and a place where any hesitation in your walking pace would be prompt to stand and banter. But on this occasion, I wanted to avoid people, avoid eye contact. Indeed, dare I admit, deliberately hide on some occasions. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to try to think how I could casually explain a near 1 kilogram Harrier hawk female juvenile that was sitting on her block in my rented camp cabin, large enough to be intimidating and too large for an explanation. This wasn't a recreational day at the beach or a summer holiday. This was serious. I was too engaged, too focused, too anxious, too emotional. Above all, this was work for both of us. Karma was the name I gave my hawk. She was the 3rd hawk I had ever looked after. She was stunning, beautiful with her dark chocolate brown plumage and dark, dark eyes that you could swim in. A bright white nape in contrast behind her head, and just a few last remnants of dandelion chick down on her head. I had raised Karma from a 20-day-old Ias, and we were a team from the beginning. What a delight to be part of her growth and development, and from the beginning, with her clumsy wing flaps and her awkward toddler runs across the ground, I just embraced her development. I smiled a lot. Just because you have wings doesn't give you a license to fly. Karma made great progress in her first short flights. She would begin with a back step onto a fence post when I rolled my gauntlet. She would rouse her feathers in excitement. I could walk away knowing she would be focused on the food I had hip-hung in my ex-army store canvas bag. I would blow my referee's whistle and I'd call her to the glove. At first it was 10 metres and I was elated, probably more than she was. She was nonchalant, she just keen to grab the meaty titbits I could offer her. But then she'd fly 20 metres and then 50 metres back to me from one side of the paddock to the other. Sometimes I would cast her from the glove and she would fly back to her post and wait to be called in again. I increased the distance to 100 metres. Often she would make clumsy downward landings and nosedive in an ungainly roll. But slowly, as we repeated these sessions, the experience extended to a mutual excitement and anticipation. We would arrive in our training field paddock just down the road from work. She would step onto paddock posts. She would again rouse her feathers and bend down and then pull out the jesses threaded through her anklets. Each day, the same day, every day. I loved the attachment, the detachment, and we both embraced the freedom. But regardless of the day, the wind, her weight, my waiting, I was mindful I wasn't offering full potential to her physical and mental development. While she was a young hawk gaining experience daily, she would only fly about 1 metre above the ground, as she never gained any height. She simply had not experienced what she was designed for, to be the gliding, soaring specialist and mistress of the skies, a sort of little New Zealand eagle. It didn't take me long to realise Karma was afraid of heights. Yeah, bit of a disadvantage when you're a bird. In an attempt to address the problem, find a solution, the following afternoon I climbed the slopes of Mount Ngataha. With Karma on gloved hand, I accessed the Ngāti Whakaui farmland next door and stopped on a slope that overlooked the township, Lake Rotorua, and the beautiful Mokoia Island. What a view. Deep breath. Take it in. I breathed again. My legs ached as we scrambled across the farmlands to the top, and with hawk on left hand, we climbed the rawness of the mountain 1,000 feet above sea level. Karma roused on the glove, her feathers shuddering like a drum roll. The wind was right for flight. We had the height, there seemed to be lift, and Karma pulled her jesses, lifted her wings. I was anxious as she circled on the slope and almost to a soar on the wind. A simple circle of flight was all I had really expected. But then her flight hugged the hill, downwards. I blew my whistle. She looked over her wing at me, and then she landed at the bottom of the slope, the same slope we had just climbed over the past hour. I blew my whistle again. She looked up. She started walking uphill. I walked downhill, and we met in the middle. So began Plan B. I packed our bags into the car, my little GT Mini, Cadge on the front seat with Karma watching the view as we drove. My army bag was loaded with dead day-old cockerels and pieces of rabbit, as well as her lure, spare jesses, fishing swivels for her leash. For me, it was just a sleeping bag and my leather hawking jacket. We drove to the coast, 1.5 hours direct to the sea breezes, the wind, and a guaranteed lift. We drove down the main road of Pahutakawa Drive, and the Ohope Holiday Motor Camp had a vacancy sign, and pets allowed. I slowed, indicated left, and booked into a cabin. We settled after the drive. She fed well on the lean rabbit meat, I ate chocolate, and I wrote up some notes. It was the following day I walked the beach and scoped the potential. The warm, late afternoon wind came up. It was onshore with plenty of lift. The thermal wind's perfect, and the cliffs over the road likely to give some extra ridge lift, or at least I'd hoped. Carbon was back in the cabin. She was on the floor, perched on her homemade cadge, a nail box with carpet offcuts. She was fluffed out in comfort, and she's standing on one leg. As I approached her, she held out one foot extended forward at an awkward angle, It's a bird thing, you know, reverse knees. Then she repositioned and roused her feathers. I bent down to pick her up onto the gauntlet. I gave a couple of taps with my right hand onto the gauntlet, and she stepped up with her big feet. I picked up her right foot under her talons, and she gently grasped my forefingers like a familiar handshake. I turned her anklets towards me and gathered her jesses behind my thumb with the figure of 8 fishing swivel, leash around my little finger, and we headed towards the tussocks. We headed for the dunes, we headed to the beach and the sea breezes. Training a raptor tends to be a solitary event, and generally you look for avoiding distractions. We managed to escape the fellow campers without drawing too much attention, and we approached the beach. As we climbed a rickety fence in the access style, the waves became louder and Karma started to pull at her jesses. Hardly any distractions. The main beach with just a few random people, stick figures in the distance. Hawk and falconer strode the sand. Unfortunately, no one told the seagulls. No sooner had we stepped onto the sand when the gulls appeared as if from nowhere. Hundreds of them, hundreds and hundreds of them. The black-backed, the red-bills, the black-bills. With an invisible language, they instantly, indeed collectively, recognised Karma as a threat before she even left the glove. The gulls swarmed us, they dive-bombed us, they vocalised ear-piercingly loudly. Quite obviously we needed to find somewhere else to work. By chance, I spotted a small picnic reserve just above the tide line, just up from the beach. No people, no dogs, no seagulls. Perfect. Just me and Karma. I slipped her leash. I removed her swivel and she pulled her jesses. Then she launched into the air. For me, it was like I was flying a kite on an invisible puppet string or something. Within seconds, she was 50 metres above me and looking down straight at me, straight in the eye. The thermals worked. I was elated. I caught her with the whistle and a small tidbit of chicken to the glove. Her wings pulled in, she stalled, slowly losing altitude, and she gently returned to my glove. It was a significant moment, a major development. She had wind, she had control. I launched her again, casting her forwards into the headwind, and for the first time she started to soar. Karma was striding the skies. I was thrilled. I danced, I jumped, and I laughed out loud. It was shared enjoyment, I think. Karma was also in her element. She sky danced in the wind, and I watched her flight in silhouette backdropped by the Ohope cliff faces and the gnarly old Pahudakawa trees. She circled, she soared, she caught the thermals, and for the first time she flew like an eagle. After about 30 minutes of sky gazing, I figured it was time to call her back, but she was in no hurry. She was taking her time. Karma had either discovered the call of the wild with her new skills, couldn't see me, or was out of earshot, so I blew the whistle louder. In the meantime, a car drove into the rest area. Car doors opened en masse and a loud family were ready to picnic. I tried to be nonchalant, sitting on a park bench while they went through preparation rituals of blankets and baskets, busy kids squealing with excitement. Personally, I wasn't ready for big explanations of the what, wherefore and why. I was sitting alone on a park bench, and I was thankful the family equally kept to themselves. But I was becoming increasingly concerned about Karma. She was well trained, but she didn't know the area. I began to worry. I blew the whistle repeatedly. I brought out additional food for her, little morsels she couldn't resist, and laid them around me on the park bench. But I could see out the side of my eyes, just out the corner, the dad of the family throwing me repeated anxious glances. There were muffled voices from the family, and when I looked in their direction, they quickly looked downwards on their picnic. I blew my whistle. I put my glove in the air, I hit my hand, and I put more tidbits on the park bench. Eventually, the father came over. "Are you okay?" he asked on approach. It seemed like an understatement. Here I was, blowing my whistle, wearing full leathers in the height of the summer, looking skywards and surrounded by dead chickens and bits of rabbit. I tried to keep it short. "Yeah, just waiting for my bird," I replied. He looked at me, my glove and the dead chickens now spread across the bench. He nodded, backed away slowly, and returned to his family. Within minutes, their picnic was packed up. They all got in the car and they left. Yay, the picnic was mine again. But within 10 minutes, the police arrived. I kept blowing my whistle, hitting my glove, looking skywards with the dead chickens spread around me, now attracting clouds of flies. The policeman slowly got out of his car, a slow motion moment as he put on his helmet and walked towards me. I put my glove on the table next to the dead chickens. My whistle dropped from my mouth, and he asked the same question. I thought this time I could give him more information. "Yep, I'm fine. I'm just waiting for my hawk." I pointed skywards towards Karma's silhouette. I was not convinced he made sense of the situation, but he seemed satisfied there were no risks, albeit an unusual encounter for his day. He got in his car and he drove away. Within minutes of the police car leaving, Karma flew overhead. Seeing an opportunity to return without distraction or interruption, she focused on me, eye-to-eye contact. She pulled her wings in tight, almost stooping like a falcon, and softly alighted on my glove. She fed up on the glove and vocalised loudly between the beak bites. She was hyped. I was relieved, my heart pounding with relief and pride. And then I looked around. No one. Where did everyone go? Where did everyone go?